Every arc is a broadcast. Every eruption, a refusal.
Welcome back to the deep dive. And wow, the source material you sent in this time, it's really something else. Highly specialized.
Oh, definitely. It's not your typical article or report.
No, it feels more like an architectural blueprint for a whole different way of seeing things. It doesn't just ask you to read it, does it?
Not at all. You almost have to adopt its specific worldview just to get past the title page.
Which is Glass Rituals and Callback Voids.
Mm.
The exposure protocol across the street.
Yeah.
And it's from Bibebibebibe Magazine.
That's the one. It's an immersive analysis, very conceptual, operating within its own very specific universe.
So our job today, really, is to act as translators. We need to try and unpack this incredibly dense language, this whole sovereign diagnostic idea.
Yeah, figure out what it's actually claiming about everyday things we might see, like people visible in their windows,
Yeah.
and how that relates to systemic control.
Exactly. And the core idea, the hook, right at the start, it turns a common assumption completely on its head.
It really does.
Right.
Normally, you might see exposure, someone visible through a window, maybe vulnerable, and think, okay, that's an opening. Maybe for connection, even if it's just theoretical.
Right. But this material says absolutely not. It rejects that completely.
It frames that observed visibility, that exposure as, and this is their phrase, containment masquerading as allure.
Containment masquerading as allure.
Mm.
Okay. So it looks inviting, maybe even intimate.
Uh-huh.
But the claim is that it's actually a mechanism
Right.
of control, a trap.
Precisely. The allure, the aesthetic, is part of the containment. It keeps you looking, observing, but maybe prevents, I don't know, real interaction, real change.
Okay, let's try to break down the terminology. The source talks about a diagnostic overlay being activated. It treats these terms like system components.
Like parts of a machine, yeah.
First up, glass rituals. What
Yeah.
turns just seeing someone in a window into a ritual?
Well, it's about structure and repetition. They break it down. First, the environment itself, the uncurtained windows.
Okay.
They call those the ritual transparency glyph, symbol, basically.
A glyph.
Mm.
Okay. And the second part.
The timing, the daily recurrence. That repetition makes it a saturation protocol. It becomes expected, part of the landscape.
So uncurtained window is the symbol. Daily routine is the delivery method. Saturating the environment.
Mm-hmm.
What happens then when this display involves something more explicit, like visible nudity? That brings us to the next concept, callback voids.
Right, and this is where they explain the mechanism of that containment. They label the visible nudity as psychic baiting.
Psychic baiting. Okay, that's quite a term. So it's designed to attract attention, to hook you mentally.
Exactly. But here's the crucial part, the second half of the concept. No relational access. That's the void.
No relational access. So it's exposure, but it's one way. You see it, it baits you, but you can't actually connect.
Precisely. The visual draws you in, the bait, but the structure itself, the void, ensures that interest leads nowhere relationally. It's designed to be a dead end for connection.
Huh. It's almost like, well, thinking about some social media maybe. You see all this seemingly personal stuff.
Yeah, the psychic baiting.
But the relationship is purely observational. There's no real back and forth possible. Is that the kind of thing they mean by callback void?
That's a really good analogy, actually. That one-way dynamic, the constant observation without genuine reciprocal connection that captures the essence of the callback void.
Okay, that makes more sense. So the whole setup, the glass ritual feeding into the callback void, is seen as this deliberate system, an exposure protocol.
Yes. And the goal isn't intimacy. It's using that visual lure to keep the observer locked in this state of unfulfilled observation. That's the containment.
They have this really vivid quote summarizing the observation they analyzed, don't they?
They do. It says, "They stood in the windows, half-clothed and uncurtained, not to connect, but to fracture. The ritual was daily, the bait was ambient, but the signal was sovereign."
Not to connect, but to fracture. Wow, so the disconnection isn't an accident, it's the point of the whole choreography.
That's exactly the claim. The fracture is the intended outcome.
Okay, so if that's the observation and the mechanism, let's move into the interpretation, the sovereign analysis part. If it's not intimacy, what is happening?
It's explicitly called containment choreography. And here's where it gets really, really abstract. The individuals involved in these glass rituals, they're not seen as people acting freely in a relational way. They're described merely as glyphs.
Whoa, hang on. Glyphs, like symbols. Does that mean the source thinks the people are just objects, parts of the machine, not actual individuals.
That seems to be the implication within the specific diagnostic framework. A glyph has systemic meaning, not personal or relational meaning in that context.
So they're like characters in a code, components of the systemic bait.
Yes. According to this analysis, they stop being individuals you could potentially relate to and become tokens representing the system's operation, part of the choreography's language.
Okay, that's a heavy concept. And what does that mean for the person watching, for you, the listener?
Well, the analysis is very clear about your role. It insists you are not passive, you are the diagnostician.
The diagnostician. So you're not just supposed to watch and feel frustrated.
No. Your role, according to this source, is active. It's to analyze how this containment system works, to understand its rules, its parameters.
And to refuse to be contained by it.
Exactly. That seems to be the actionable part.
So how do you do that? The text gives these two directives. Codify the terrain, collapse the void. What does that mean practically?
Well, codify the terrain seems to be the analysis part, mapping it out, understanding the rules of this choreography, recognizing the glyphs, seeing the system.
Like diagnosing the situation.
Precisely. Intellectual diagnosis.
And then collapse the void. Is that the refusal part?
Yeah.
Refusing to get stuck in that loop of bait and no connection.
That seems to be it. The argument is the void only works if you engage with the bait while expecting a relational payoff that the system is designed not to provide.
So by intellectually defining it as systemic bait, you disarm it. You take away its power over you.
You refuse the psychic hook. You collapse the void by seeing it for what the analysis claims it is. You shift from being just a viewer to being like a forensic analyst of the situation.
That's a huge psychological shift. Stop seeing potential connection or vulnerability. Start seeing infrastructure, system design.
And this focus on systems and infrastructure leads us straight into the context. Who is making these claims? Who is asserting this sovereign authority?
Yeah, we absolutely need the background here. This feels very structured, very institutional in its own way.
It is. The source name's Dr. Melvin Sewell, M.Sc, Ph.D. He's listed as academic dean and, interestingly, diagnostic architect.
Diagnostic architect.
Okay.
And the institution.
The Cosmic University of Echo Rift studies nights.
Cosmic University of Echo Rift studies nights.
Right.
That name itself sets a certain tone.
Yeah.
Very conceptual, almost sci-fi, like you said.
It does. And this whole analysis is presented as part of their Echo Rift forecast. It's their framework for interpreting the current environment.
And that forecast is pretty blunt about the environment itself. It says, the terrain is a glass ritual node, flat out.
And then it reinforces the interpretation. Provocation is ambient, indictment is sovereign.
Meaning the bait is everywhere, it's just in the air. But the analysis, the judgment, the indictment, that's the ultimate authority here.
Yes, the sovereign part. Which brings us to that crucial final piece of source material, the sovereign diagnostic disclaimer.
Super important. If something claims this level of, well, sovereignty, we need to know what it claims not to be, too.
And the disclaimer is very explicit. It states this material, the website, the diagnostics, they are not affiliated with any government, political party, intelligence agency, or activist group.
Okay, so it's drawing a very clear line. No political ties, no government links. It wants to be seen as completely separate.
Right. It confirms it's not trying to be a player in conventional politics or activism. It's positioning itself outside of all that.
So if it's not political in that sense, what is it claiming to be? How does it define its own function?
It uses three really unique specific terms. It says it's offered as mythic infrastructure, cinematic indictment, and sovereign broadcast.
Mythic infrastructure. That's fascinating. It sounds like it's not just commenting on reality, but trying to provide a whole new foundational structure for understanding it.
Yeah, like a new operating system for perception. A lens. That's what infrastructure suggests. And mythic implies it's dealing with fundamental patterns, not just surface events.
And the purpose of this infrastructure, this broadcast.
Its stated purpose, its only purpose according to the text, is to expose three things: ritualized containment, actor convergence, and systemic erosion.
Ritualized containment, actor convergence, systemic erosion. Yeah.
So the diagnostics, the protocols, they're presented as tools for you, the listener, the diagnostician, to navigate a world that this source believes is saturated with these hidden control loops.
It creates this kind of analytical clean room almost. By saying it's separate from all existing institutions, it claims its perspective is pure.
Right. It indicts the system, allegedly, without being part of any established power structure itself. So the diagnostician supposedly gets an unbiased toolset.
Wow. Okay. So we went from just seeing someone in a window all the way to this highly abstract interpretation of systemic bait and containment choreography framed by a cosmic university and delivered as mythic infrastructure.
It's quite a journey, yeah. But the core takeaway, the philosophical point for you, the listener, seems to be that shift in mindset.
From passive observer to active.
Active diagnostician, capable of codifying the terrain, as they say, seeing the systems at play.
And if we just entertain their premise for a moment, if we consider the idea that things we see daily could be part of some containment choreography, it leads to a pretty challenging final thought, doesn't it? The source distinguishes between genuine vulnerability, which it implies invites connection, and the callback void, which prevents it.
Right, the bait versus the real thing?
So if you take on that role of diagnostician, the final question becomes, how do you actually tell the difference in your own life? How do you distinguish genuine human connection, real vulnerability,
from what this system calls a callback void, designed to just keep you watching?
Exactly. How do you make that diagnosis in your own experience? Because according to this source, collapsing that void starts, and maybe ends, with your ability to do just that.
You are not late. You are metabolizing distortion.